Hi everyone and welcome back. So in this video we will talk about NestJS with the TypeORM, all the configurations, how to write migrations, how to create a new migration, seed migration, all those things. But before that, the very important aspect of writing a microservice either in the Node.js TypeScript, Express or a simple NestJS. What all things are considered as a best practice? When you Google it, you might find 1,000 different options in or 100 different options 100 different ways to make your application using best practices so we'll just talk about them and then we will come back to our original topic. So structure your solution by component. We are using nestjs, so we will write different modules. Layer your components, keep express within its boundaries because we are creating controllers, services, dtos, pipes. Everything is structured properly. Wrap common utilities as an npm package. There are many examples where you can write a npm package like you are using event driven system and you want to write a common library that can be helpful to make a http call to write something to sqs kafka or write to a simple file, right? So it's like a file writer or some kind of event writer you can write as a simple utility. Or while sending an email, you can write a email sender as a package which will take care of sending the email to either send grid to either using different providers. Use environment aware, secure and hierarchical config. We have to write our proper configurations where we can segregate dev, local, production, staging and all. Error handling practices in nestjs. Nestjs provides all different type of error handlings for all the routes like http exceptions, not found exception, forbidden and all. Try to use these existing one only. If there is a need, then create your own exception class by extending the error class. Handle error certainly not within the express middlewares. Document API using Swagger, so we are going to use nestjs Swagger. And exit the process gracefully. Yes, this is important part. You have to handle unhandled promise rejection gracefully and shut down the resources and release the resources when this things happens, so your container or your pod can restart your application. You have to release the resources for the database, you have to close the http server connection, and so that your process can automatically restart it. We can use jest mocha for the testing, discover errors and downtime using APM product like New Relic, Rollbar, Key Matrix. All these tools are there which can help you to debug any runtime errors happening anytime, right? Because your application is running 24/7, you might need to see the error logs, catch unhandled promise rejections. There may be a case where your application, your process is throwing unhandled rejection. So what you can do is you can write process.own unhandled, and you can write a callback that will help you to check. I mean, your application is running 24/7 and there may be a use case where your application code is throwing unhandled exception which you're not handling, and it might be restarting your application due to that maybe. But in the future versions of Node.js, your application will totally crash when the unhandled exceptions are coming. So it's better to track them right now. Code style, you can use tslint, ESLint. Tslint is moving to ESLint, so write a ESLint RC file, provide all the configurations like ESLint TypeScript for the nestjs application. Use common guidelines for writing the TypeScript code, like using the classes, use lat and const, write proper classes, use private, public, private, protected methods inside the classes. Do not expose all the functions as a public. Use async await, avoid callback and promises. If something can be written in the promises, then use async await. Use arrow function as much as you can. Rest all is all about the quality and all. You should write a unit test, integration test, and you can also use end-to-end test coverage using Cypress, right? Tag your test, write the unit test cases by mocking the dependencies. Inspect the outdated package. Always run the npm audit and always keep your package log file updated. Do not overwrite it or something like that, and keep the CI pipeline available for your project, so whenever any unit test case fails, it should not be able to deploy. Going to the production, once application is ready for production, few things which we always need is We need to have a proper logging mechanism. We need to have a proper error handling mechanism, monitoring, health check. We need to have proper mechanism for locking the dependencies, guarding. There is kind of some monitoring tool like Liberto on the Heroku, New Relic, key metrics, uh, rollbar. All these can be used to monitor your application process, like monitoring the logging using log entries on the Heroku. Which you can use different plugins on Heroku or AWS. If you are deploying application on Heroku, you can use key metrics, you can use New Relic out of the box, you can use Liberto, you can use key log entries to check your logs, you can use rollbar. All these things you can add as a plugin, so you can see the uptime metrics for your application, some logs for the application, New Relic, transactions, like what is the health of your application, how much traffic you are getting, and what is the performance of the APIs. It's like monitoring, guarding, and getting the notifications when anything happens, right? Make your code production ready, use process.env as a production, design automated atomic zero downtime deployment, use PM2 for deployment. Maybe that makes sure if you are running two different processes on the PM2, it will shut down one by one and deploy the new instance, right? Use always the LTS version of Node.js stable, and always do the npm audit to detect the anomalies in the npm modules. Always use the authenticated and the well-known library. It's not like randomly you pick any npm module and start using it. If you are running the application on multiple CPU cores, you can use PM2, and you can spin up your application on multiple cores using creating multiple PM2 instance, so that you can utilize the resources properly, right? And increase the transparency using logs. You can use the ELK stack for the logging of any Node.js application. You can use a rollbar to get any kind of a warning or errors that can be added to your notification also, so you will get notified once the error is coming. Okay, this is just about Node.js or NestJS best practices. Now what we will do is coming back to our topic, where we are talking about NestJS TypeORM that we have done from the very basics. So this is our env, this is our ESLint RC that I already talked about, that we can just get rid of the TSLint stuff because TSLint is moving to the ESLint. So what all plugins we need is, we need Typescript ESLint parser. This is the parser, and plugin is this. We can also use some recommended, like this Typescript ESLint recommended and prettier recommended. And whatever the rules, some rules you wanted to override, you wanted to switch them off, then you can explicitly specify them that these rules I don't want, and you can just do npm run lint fix lint. These are the npm commands you can add in your package.json that will help you to run the lint and the format command for your application. And commonly we are using nodemon ormconfig.ts. So what all things we have? So it's like a basic nestjs application. We need a docker setup that we already have. We need a docker file. Currently I'm running only the Postgres container. I'm running this nestjs application on the local using npm run start debug. Okay, you need docker file, docker setup, and you need nodemon. You need ESLint setup. You need ORM config, which is a part of configuring the database. Okay, and the proc file, which is going to help us in deployment onto Heroku. And then tslint config, you can see this is for TypeScript compilation, compiler configuration, right? So all these things are there. You have docker compose, you have source code. Here we are putting all the migrations, because now we are using TypeORM, so we also need to be aware about how to run the migrations. So you can see everything is set up in the package.json, and this code is already available on the GitHub, so you can check this out. If you wanted to create a new migrations, run a new migrations, you can do all those things using these npm scripts. So let's move to our first project, and what we are doing is npm run, and what I wanted to run is I wanted to create a new migration. So this is db migration generate. You wanted to create a new table in your system. right? So what it will do is it will create a test migration, and whenever you do npm run db migration run, what it is going to do, first you do npm run build. So if you see the ormconfig.ts, it is looking into these files to run the migrations, to create the migrations and all. Okay, you can see this is the migration CLI will use these directories. I mean, when you are doing npm run create migrations, generate migrations, then it is going to create a migration in the src migration folder. It is going to look for the entities inside this folder. But when you run migrations, run migration, then it will look inside this directory, which is compiled folder. Okay, so you can see I did npm run build. So build will create a dist folder for our code, and then inside code we can see src migration. And after this npm run build, what I will do is npm run db migration run. What it will do is it will run the pending migrations. This is src, this is migration. You can see there are two migrations. Test migration is totally empty, there is nothing right now. It's migration run. This is the command. Okay, and how the migration looks like, if you go inside src migration nodes, so there is an up and down step. This is the TypeORM migration. This is how we write it. It will connect to the database and it will just check, okay, if there is a new migration, just create it. So you can see it has created this nodes table. Two migrations were found in the source code. It is running individual migration in an independent transaction. So if any one of the migration failed, it will not impact the other migration file. Two new migrations, two has been executed. Okay, that's it. So here we can create a new migration, we can run the migrations, it will create the table in the database. You can see this is a TypeORM migration file. So it will create a new table in the database, and our application, you can see our domain. This is the entity, nodes entity. We have a services, node services. I will not go into this how we have written it, because this is very basic CRUD operation in the NestJS Postgres TypeORM, which we have already talked many times. So these are the CRUD operation. I was just talking about how to do the configurations like ormconfig.ts and Docker configuration. Here we have node1, procfile and all. And these are the npm scripts we have, which are dealing with the TypeORM. Npm run migration run, npm run migration create, update, and this is the TypeORM command. Now if I do npm run start debug, you can see this application is running, and this application is running on these particular ports 3000, and these are the all routes: update, creep, update, delete, get, nodes. Now we have created a table, so we should be able to do a create, update, delete. Okay, so you can start your first microservice with the NestJS using TypeORM Postgres. All the configurations are here. You can consider this is a boilerplate. It also contains the auth module, database module, because we are connecting to the database. So it contains a DB module, which we have already discussed. DB module, here we are connecting to the Postgres. We already have the URL, database URL. Okay, and this is our app. Inside app we have the controllers, nodes controller. Here it contains http get, put, post, delete, all the routes created. This is the get nodes. This is get node by id, update node by id, delete node by id. Okay, next we are going to take a look on knex, knex, as a query builder. We will first take a look onto the documentation and how to build, how to integrate knex with the nextjs. So I'm talking about here knex, which is a query builder with nestjs plus postgres. Okay, thanks everyone.